Hello again, my crafty friends. So today I just wanted to come in and share with you guys a Cricut crafting video. I thought that it would be fun to make something more Valentine themed. And as always, I will be sharing this file with all of my friends over on the Craft Therapy Facebook page. But as you can see here, I've used some vinyl and some paper piecing with some acetate to create kind of a cutout theme. I don't really have a name for it, but I thought it would be something fun to do. So I'm going to take you into Design Space and I'm going to show you how to create this one, and then we will put together the second card that is on this file. So as you can see, I'm going in here to Design Space and I'm going to go into our images and I'm going to look for a couple of images that I've already pre-selected, and you can feel free to change those. So I'm picking out the Valentine's Day red truck, and then I am also picking out the God Knew I Needed You sentiment. I'm doing a zigzag pattern, and then I am also going to be looking for what we call the heart bees. No, I'm going to do the hugs and kisses first for a background pattern, and then finally I will look for our heart bees. And then once I've done that and gotten all of our patterns in, the first thing that I am going to do is I'm going to work with our XO pattern. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to make this a part of the card front. So I'm going to size this piece down, and I am going to make it 2.5 inches wide by the entire 7 inches long. And I'm going to do that for the zigzag pattern and for the XO pattern. So we're going to make one that is going to be landscape and one that is going to be horizontal. Did I say that right? Horizontal, and one that's vertical. That's what I meant. So we've got our two patterns here. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make the remainder of the card base. So because we've already done 2.5 inches of the card base, I am going to take the other piece of the card base and I'm going to make that 7.5. 7.5 plus 2.5 equals 10, and we're going to be scoring it at the 5-inch mark. So once we do that, I'm going to duplicate that twice because of course we're making two cards. And what I'm essentially going to do next is I'm going to take the X and Y coordinates and I'm going to align the XO pattern with the remainder of the card base, and I'm going to weld that together, and that's going to create our entire card base. Then I will attach our score line. We're going to do the same exact process for the zigzag pattern, just doing it the other way. So we're going to flip that and it'll be at a 90-degree angle, and we will then take the zigzag pattern and we will move that down so that it is butt up against the remainder of the card base. We'll weld it, and then we will do our score line for that one as well. Now, one of the things that I like to do just to make the inside of the card appear finished is I make a small border, because I'm going to put a piece of acetate behind the window, and that just gives some sturdiness to the card. So here you can see I have cut out a small square that will go behind the inside of the card. So it'll go behind the XO and the zigzag pattern, and it will just be the border to the acetate so that it's not an unfinished edge and so that the glue is not shown. So we've done that and we've gotten those two pieces completed. So the next thing that we're going to do with our pattern, I'm just kind of making sure everything is lining up the way that I want it to, so we can keep everything together in the card file. So now I'm going to make my acetate piece. Now initially I made this exactly 5x7. You could keep it that way. You just have to make sure that your measurements are spot on when you are aligning your card base. Or you can make it about 1/8 of an inch smaller. I usually do okay as long as it's a complete square, so I didn't worry about making it any smaller. And so, like I said, that piece will go behind the zigzag panel, and then it will be bordered by the square cutout piece. So for the zigzag panel, I thought it would be cute to make something that made to have the little red truck look like it's driving down the road of the zigzag panel. So I'm just sizing that a little bit, and I just eyeballed that. I didn't have any exact measurements, and then I wanted the God Knew I Needed You coming from the tailpipe. In my mind, that's just the dust coming from behind the tailpipe and creating this lovely sentiment, as you can see. So what I'm going to do next is I am going to manipulate this card base a little bit. I want to create some dimension. So these pieces that I am turning orange will be cut out of cardstock in order to make this panel or the truck more like a chipboard piece. And then the red portion of the truck I am going to create with vinyl. Now, as you can see, I turned one of the truck pieces gray because I'm going to use some silver. What did I use? I think it was foil acid, the foil shiny stuff. Oh my gosh, I can't remember what I used. But at any rate, I'm going to use that to kind of make a chrome look behind the red portion of the car. Then I did the same thing with the God Knew I Needed You. I duplicated that multiple times, and then the top piece will be made of vinyl. The hearts in that will be flat on the card, and all of those pieces will be made of vinyl as well. So we're going to move over to our XOXO card, and I'm going to work on my bees. And again, I am just eyeballing the size that I want these pieces to be, and I am going to pretty much do the exact same process. I'm going to go in and kind of manipulate some of the layers so that I can make the bees more sturdy and more substantial. I like a really thick and heavy card, so I like a lot of dimension on my cards. If you don't, you are more than welcome to not cut out the pieces that are orange on the finished card and just do everything flat. That would be exceptionally pretty as well. I just noticed that I make a lot of cards, and so I don't use a lot of my vinyl sometimes, and I've tried a lot here recently to incorporate vinyl into my cards. Instead of trying to force myself to do more vinyl projects, I just add the vinyl onto my cards, and it gives it an added piece. And I love the finished look of it. Now, as you can see on this one, I am choosing multiple parts of the card, of the honeybee, to make with paper. I did the very base layer, and then I did the face, and I also did the heart that the bee is holding. Everything else will just be vinyl pieces, but these were the layers when I was thinking about it in my mind. And again, I'm looking at the panel because the panel will show you how the pieces go from bottom to top if you're looking at it once it comes into Design Space. So I chose the pieces that I thought would make a really good substantial panel. So now I'm going in and I'm just looking at my colors and just deciding if I want to change any colors just to be able to minimize the number of mats that I'm going to have to use. So I'm going through and changing the colors so that it kind of coordinates throughout both cards and minimizes the number of colors that you have to use, especially when some of those colors are different shades of the same color. That's just personal preference. You can do whatever works for you. Manipulate this file however you need to. So now we've got everything all grouped together, and we are all ready to go. I am going to get everything cut out, and we are going to start working on making our project. So here we go. I've got my piece, and I've got a piece of score tape, which is 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to carefully place that around the window, and this is going to be the piece that the acetate window will stick onto. So as we get the acetate stuck on, and one of the things that I like to do is I peel it back just a little bit and fold it over on itself so I can kind of get my acetate lined up, and then it's easier for me to just pull the score tape away from the acetate that way. So here we are kind of getting everything all lined up, and then once I get everything lined up the way that I want to, it's easy for me to just pull the strips away. So I did get a tad bit of overhang, but nothing serious, so we're okie dokie there. So now we're going to take our card base, and as you can see, I am again taking some score tape and putting it on the acetate side this time, so that that will go on the inside of the card base. And like I said, this makes it a little more sturdy and substantial because we've cut out a lot of that front card base, just making that XO pattern on the inside. So adding the acetate and this window will definitely give it some additional just bulk to make your card feel more substantial. So again, we're peeling that apart, and now we've got the inside of our card base complete. So now we're going to work on putting together our little honeybees. So like I said, what I've done is I've already glued together all of the honeybee pieces that I did with the orange. It showed as orange in the file, but of course I didn't cut it out in orange. So now we're just taking the vinyl pieces and lining those up for each of our honeybees, and we've got that piece completed. So next we're going to take our hearts, and again I have already glued together the multiple pieces of the hearts. I didn't think that you would want to sit there and watch me glue together 3 to 5 pieces of cardstock, so I did that off camera. And next we have the actual faces. Again, that was a piece that I created with some dimension, so I glued 3 of those together, and then we're going to add their faces onto it. And these lined up really easy, and I think that one of the reasons that they lined up so easily was because I made them a larger size, so it wasn't very difficult to get them to line up. Now, one of the things that I think I did, and I'm not quite sure, is I think one of my honeybees was bigger than the other, and I think I might have used the wrong heads, but it's okay. It all turned out to be great in the end. And so this piece is the part that adds the lashes onto the girl honeybee, and it just adds a little dimension onto the front of the boy honeybee. These are 2 separate colors. I don't know if the camera picks that up really well, but it is 2 separate colors of the of that brownish skin tone colored vinyl that just adds a little dimension to it. I'm adding her cheeks, which has 2 layers. It's a pink and a red, kind of giving her a little blush. And then the boy bee just has, excuse me, his red layers. Now we're going to add on their hearts to their antennas, and this part was flat. I did not add any type of dimension to that, so it does lay directly onto the card, and it doesn't cause any issues in the finished card. So now we have taken some of the foiled, why can't I think of the word? It is, if you can think of it, tell me in the bottom. It is the Cricut foiled something that is really pretty. Any rate, so I use that, and we get a little glimmer with our hearts on our little honeybees, and I just think they came out so super cute. I really enjoyed making this card. I think that they were fun. Excuse me, I'm getting over being ill, so I'm still working on keeping my voice. So again, I did the same thing with the God Knew My Heart Needed You. Off camera, I fiddled with all of the pieces. Initially, I thought it was all one piece until I cut it out, and then I found out that it was multiple pieces, but not anything too difficult to do. So I'm just adding the vinyl portion onto this piece of the card, and the best thing that I can tell you is to start in the middle. That was the thing that I found that worked best for these longer pieces, to start in the middle and line it up, and then that helps to get everything else lined up. And also not pressing down on it too much initially. Wait until you have everything lined up the way that you want it to be, and that helps really, really well with giving you more time to line things up the way that you want it to be. This piece was probably the most difficult piece to get lined up just because it was multiple lines of text. And I actually thought this would be the easier part because it was all lined up or all attached to each other. But although it was the hardest piece, it still was not very difficult. So if that's any consolation prize, there you go. And I think that the end result, it definitely was worth the little bit of time I had to use fiddling with it. Now, in order to get this layered up on the card, I did use like small dots of glue. I didn't want it to be like sticky or oozing out. So I am taking a handmade stencil. This is a stencil that I cut out using the Cricut, just using some acetate, just to add a little bit of interest to the background. I am taking a little bit of Post-it tape to make a barrier so that I don't go across to the back of my card. And typically this is something a little different for me. I usually don't work directly on my card base, so this was a little bit out of my comfort zone. But I'm taking a little bit of Distress Oxide, and I think that this is in the color Salty Ocean. And I am just adding a little bit of interest to the back portion of the heart. I'm taking that same piece of Post-it tape and just taping down the front of my card because I haven't used the bone folder yet to actually varnish the card down, and I don't really know why. There's no purpose to that. So if you want to do that in advance, go ahead. And I am placing the pieces of the card the way that I want them to be. I'm adding the little, what do we call it, little buzz trails for the honeybees, which I think is such a cute accent to the card. And I am here using some of my art glitter glue that I get from maymaymadeit.com, and just dotting that on very, very lightly, but enough to make sure that it sticks, because this does have, like I said, some dimension. I think that there are 5 layers underneath the vinyl portion of this card. So we are finishing up and getting everything placed where it needs to be, and kind of gluing down our last little honeybee here. And I did not do anything to the inside of the card because I don't know exactly who I'm going to use this for or what I'm going to use it for yet, and so I usually wait until I know exactly what I'm doing with my card. So here we go. We have our card completed, and I think it came out just super cute. This would be a wonderful Valentine's Day card for anyone, and it does not take a whole long time. So if you guys come over to the Craft Therapy page on Facebook, this file will be ready and available for you guys to utilize or tweak however you would like. So you'll get this one in addition to the red truck for you to kind of do pretty much the same thing with, and utilize as you need. I thank you guys so much for joining me again today, and you have a wonderful crafty remainder of your weekend. I will talk to you soon in the next video. Have a great one. Bye-bye.